Mill tried to steal my house using a fake lawyer. She had no idea I'm a real one until it was too late. I'm 35, male. As a lawyer with over a decade of experience, I've learned that sometimes the best advantage is letting people underestimate you. I rarely mention my profession, unless I have to, which has saved me more than once, especially when dealing with my mother-in-law, Karen. From day one, Karen and I were like oil and water. Picture this: a woman who'd spent decades being the sun her daughter's world revolved around, suddenly faced with some middle-class guy stealing her spotlight. She'd sit there at family gatherings, sweet as artificial sweetener, taking these perfectly timed jabs at my background or career. "Oh, honey, you work in an office? That's nice." All said with this smile that just dared you to call her out. When I proposed to her daughter, Karen went into overdrive. Suddenly every conversation included a mention of that nice doctor her daughter dated in college. He's chief of surgery now, you know. The fact that she had no clue I was actually a successful attorney just made her little digs that much more entertaining. Everything really hit the fan when we bought our house 3 years ago. It's this beautiful colonial place, a peaceful neighborhood, about an hour from Karen's house. You'd think we'd announced we were moving to Mars, an hour away, but how will I help the grandchildren? Never mind that we didn't even have kids yet. She started showing up unannounced, always with some paper-thin excuse about being in the neighborhood. Yeah, 60 miles from home then, about 6 months ago, Karen started getting weird about the house. It started with these odd comments dropped into conversation, stuff about family property and keeping things in the right hands. At first, we just rolled our eyes. But then she got more aggressive, questioning whether we were mature enough to handle home ownership. Everything came to a head one afternoon when she showed up with this guy who looked like he'd bought his suit from a Halloween store. She waltzed in like she owned the place, which, as it turned out, was exactly what she was aiming for. "We need to discuss some paperwork," she announced, settling in at our dining room table like she was closing on a Fortune 500 merger. "It's about transferring the house into my name. For the family's security, of course." I had to bite my cheek to keep from laughing. Her lawyer, Mr. Clark, started pulling wrinkled papers from a briefcase that had seen better days. Everything about him screamed fake, from his nervous sweating to the way he couldn't make eye contact. I decided to have some fun. Asked him some basic legal questions any first-year law student could answer. Watched him squirm and stumble while Karen kept trying to cut in. "Let's just sign the papers and worry about the details later." Finally, I'd had enough of the charade. Reached for my own briefcase. "As a practicing attorney myself," I said casually, "I have some concerns about these documents. The looks on their faces, priceless." Karen's jaw literally dropped. "You're a lawyer?" "10 years and counting," I smiled. "Now, want to explain why you're trying to fraudulently transfer my property with falsified documents and an impersonated legal representative?" The documents were a joke, wrong terminology, missing clauses, spelling errors everywhere. But I had more. "I've got records of all your unauthorized property inquiries, Karen." "Oh, and those emails you sent from your work account about forging documents?" Not very subtle. That's when she switched tactics, turned to my wife with crocodile tears. "Sweetie, your husband is being unreasonable. This is about family." My wife, who'd been quiet until then, finally spoke up. "No, Mom, this is about control, and it stops now." I laid out exactly how much trouble they were in, and Mr. Clark practically sprinted for the door. Karen tried to bluff and bluster, but I shut it down. "I've already contacted the authorities. The title inquiries alone could mean criminal charges. But I'm willing to keep this quiet if you drop it and stay out of our lives." The aftermath was something else. I filed a complaint against Mr. Clark with the Bar Association. Turns out he was her tennis instructor's brother-in-law who'd taken a few law classes before dropping out. He quickly disappeared from the picture, likely to avoid further legal trouble. I also worked with a title protection service to ensure Karen couldn't make any future claims on our house. Karen, unsurprisingly, tried to retaliate. She spread rumors among family members, claiming I was destroying the family, and turning my wife against her. Most of them saw through her lies, but a few called to ask what was going on. I calmly explained the situation, and once they heard the full story, they were firmly on our side. The most satisfying moment came a month later, when I received a letter from Karen's workplace. Karen lost her job when they found out she'd been using company resources for her scheme. Many of them, especially those who had already been burned by her manipulative ways, began distancing themselves. She went from being the self-proclaimed matriarch to a pariah almost overnight. Still, she didn't go quietly. She tried one last desperate move, filing a bogus lawsuit claiming she had contributed financially to our house and therefore had a stake in it. The irony of her baseless claim wasn't lost on me. When the court date arrived, Karen struts in wearing what I can only describe as her power suit, accompanied by a lawyer who, while slightly more polished than Mr. Clark, still gave off distinct ambulance chaser vibes. She had this smug look on her face, like she thought she was about to star in her own episode of Law and Order. I chose to represent myself. My regular lawyer offered to handle it, but after looking at Karen's lawsuit, he just laughed and asked, "Want to take this one yourself? It might be fun." He wasn't wrong. The judge was this no-nonsense woman in her 60s who looked like she'd seen every trick in the book. The moment Karen's team started their opening statement, I could see the judge's expression shift from professional neutrality to barely concealed irritation. Karen's lawyer tried to spin this elaborate tale about how she'd been intimately involved in our home purchase. According to him, she had made substantial contributions to the down payment and had an unofficial agreement about partial ownership. He threw around a lot of legal jargon, clearly trying to compensate for the lack of actual evidence. When it was my turn to cross-examine Karen, that's when things got really interesting. "Mrs. Karen," I started, keeping my tone perfectly professional, "could you please specify the exact amounts you contributed to the house purchase?" She shifted in her seat. "Well, it was several substantial amounts over time. Could you provide the specific dates and amounts?" "I didn't keep records. These were family arrangements." "I see. And how were these contributions made? Check? Wire transfer? Cash?" "It was more of an understanding between family members." "An understanding," I repeated, letting that hang in the air. "So, you're asking the court to believe you contributed to a six-figure property purchase without keeping a single receipt, bank statement, or written agreement." The judge was actually taking notes at this point, none of them favorable to Karen's case. I then pulled out my evidence, complete documentation of our home purchase, including all sources of funds. Bank statements showing every penny came from our accounts. The unauthorized title inquiries Karen had made. The fraudulent documents from her previous attempt with Mr. Clark. And just for good measure, the complaint was filed with the Bar Association about her fake lawyer scheme. "Your Honor," I concluded, "what we have here isn't just a baseless claim. It's part of a pattern of attempted fraud and harassment, as evidenced by these documents." Karen's lawyer tried to object, but his heart wasn't in it. He knew they were sinking. The judge took off her glasses and looked directly at Karen. "Mrs. Karen, in my 30 years on the bench, I've seen a lot of frivolous lawsuits. But this," she shook her head, "this is exceptional in its complete lack of merit. Not only is there no evidence to support your claim, but there is substantial evidence of previous attempts to fraudulently obtain this property." The judge dismissed the case with prejudice and ordered Karen to pay all legal fees. She even recommended that Karen seek legal counsel about potential consequences for filing false claims. As we left the courthouse, Karen looked like she'd swallowed a lemon. She tried to maintain her dignity, but it's hard to look haughty when you've just been dressed down by a judge in open court. She shot me this venomous glare, but I just smiled and wished her a nice day. In the weeks that followed, Karen retreated into obscurity. Without her job or her family's support, she had no leverage left. My wife and I focused on rebuilding our lives without her interference, setting firm boundaries to ensure she couldn't weasel her way back in. The family dynamics shifted dramatically. Once everyone heard what she'd tried to pull, years of similar stories came out. Attempts to control her sister's inheritance, trying to get power of attorney over their father's estate. She'd been pulling this stuff for years, just never got caught so blatantly before. These days, we keep Karen at arm's length. My wife isn't ready to cut contact completely, but we have strict boundaries. No unannounced visits, no financial discussions, and any manipulation gets shut down immediately. Looking back, I'm actually grateful it happened. My wife finally stood up to years of manipulation, and we came out stronger. Our house isn't just a home anymore. It's a symbol of standing our ground. And here's my advice. When dealing with manipulative family members, don't back down. These people thrive on intimidation, but they crumble when faced with facts and firm boundaries. Sometimes the best defense is letting them think they've got the upper hand, right until the moment they realize they never stood a chance.